Hello guys, for today's lesson, you're going to need this paper if you are a partial in-class learner. The guided notes for today. If you are at home, it would be good for you to copy down the notes in a notebook. So if you need to pause to go find that paper or a notebook, please pause the video right now and come back and start it back up. So for today, we are covering weather versus climate. I started putting little reminders at the top of these slides when we go through them sometimes to remind you what you're supposed to be doing. So when you see this little icon in the corners, it does mean you should be writing something down. Okay, so to get started today, we're going to talk about what the difference between weather and climate is, and we're going to talk a little bit about what makes climate what it is in certain places in the world. So if we're talking about weather first, weather is a condition of the air and sky at a certain time. So, for example, weather would be something that is what it's doing outside that specific day or that specific week. What you see if you ever watch the news, which I know most middle school kids don't, but they tell you what the weather's going to be like that day, what it's going to be like the next day, and give you a kind of a preview of what's happening that week. So, weather is just something in the immediate future. Like a newscaster is telling you that maybe it's going to be, sunny today, or it's going to rain today, or we're going to get snow, or so on. So again, weather is just what's happening currently, or what's happening tomorrow, or what's happening within the week. It's usually something pretty close to what's going on. And what is that weather? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is there, a thunderstorm going to happen? Is there a chance of a tornado? That kind of thing. On the other hand, climate is when you take the average weather of a place over many years and you're describing what that place is like normally on a yearly basis. For example, if we talk about Indiana, Indiana has hot summers and cold winters, and that's normal for us from year to year to year. That's what we see. So if you kind of look at what is the difference between the two, is it weather or is it climate? So if I'm describing something like what I have on this page, would it be weather or would it be climate? So read through this. I'll help you read it too. But then take a second and think about, is it going to be weather or is it going to be climate, and see if you can get it right. So in Antarctica, it is cold year round. The average temperature is between 14 degrees and negative 76 degrees. So take a second, and would that be weather or climate? If you said climate, you are correct. It's climate because it's talking about what Antarctica is like year round. It's not talking about a specific day. Okay, here's another one. This weekend should be nice. It is supposed to be 80 degrees and partly sunny. Would that be weather or climate? If you said weather, you are correct. It is talking about what it's going to be like just this weekend. Now, is this weather or climate? Parts of Australia have mild summers and cool, rainy winters. Weather or climate? If you said climate, you're correct. It's talking about what Australia in that section would be like in the summer and what the winters are like. It's not talking about a specific day. Now, some things that you can take into account when you're talking about climate, which is what we're going to focus on this week, are zones of latitude. So the Earth has different areas that receive different amounts of direct sunlight due to the tilt of the Earth's axis. So think of Earth sitting on a little pedestal and it tilts just a little bit when it rotates around the sun. And how the sun hits the Earth give you these different zones of latitude. There's three of them. You have the polar zones, which are here in blue at the top, and the bottom, and they are in what you call high latitudes. If you remember, latitude lines go across the globe like this. The high latitudes are at the top and at the bottom, and that is where you will find the polar zones. They are cold to very bitterly cold. The other section, before I go on, so sorry, the polar zones are cold because they are the furthest away from the direct sunlight and where the sunlight hits the earth as it is tilted. The tropics are low latitudes and they are very hot. So, this area that's kind of shaded in pink are the low latitudes. Here is your equator. Those are the areas closest to the equator and go up to what is the Tropic of Cancer right here and the Tropic of Capricorn right here. Those would be the tropics. And those areas are usually hot and usually hot all year round. They get the most direct sunlight. And lastly, you have the temperate zones, which are the middle latitudes. Up here in light blue, as you can see, that's where the United States is, down here in that light blue section. And they are most known for, they have seasons. So if you think about the United States, for example, where we live, we have 4 seasons here. Usually if you're in southern United States, they might have 2 different seasons. But here we have the summer, winter, fall, and spring. Because of how the earth tilts, it's warmer in the spring and summer. We get more direct sunlight then. When the earth tilts a different way, we don't get as much direct sunlight, and that is where you get winter and fall. Some other factors that affect what your climate or weather is going to be like would be altitude. Altitude is just meaning elevation, how high up you are. In the mountains, it doesn't always matter where you are in the world. As you get higher in the atmosphere, the air gets colder. So you may get more precipitation, and it is going to get colder as you get higher up on a mountain. So it could be very, very warm down here at the bottom, but as you climb the mountain and get to the top, you may still see snow, and it may still be pretty cold. So again, elevation, altitude, it gets colder as you go up. Another factor is water. If you've ever noticed, when it rains, even in the summer, it usually is colder outside. So that water can change the temperature outside. And then wind. Wind is another factor that can affect things. Now, I'm not going to explain this in any big detail, but most of our weather, we are known up here in the United States for everything coming from the west. So usually we can look back and see what is happening in the middle of the United States, what's happening in the western United States, and know that that eventually is going to make its way to us because of the prevailing winds of the world, for example. This is how it usually is. The wind can also factor in is when the wind comes in from the north, the air is colder. When the wind comes in down here from the south, our weather is warmer. So wind can play a role also. So again, weather is when you're talking about today, tomorrow, something in the near future, what the weather is going to be like exactly on that day. Climate is an average of what that place or that area of the world has been year after year after year. So for today, that is it for our guided notes. Any questions? If you're home, just send me an email. I can help you out. Right now, we're going to talk about the climate project you are going to do this week. That will be due on Friday. So our next little place that you go to is going to talk about that project for you. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know.